Welcome to Girlfriends Bible Study, a live Bible study with Connie and friends. Each week, Connie and her girlfriends engage in a lively conversation as they read and study Scripture. So grab a pen, your journal, and your best friend, and enjoy this enlightening Bible study.
Welcome to Bible Study Live with Connie and hopefully Connie and friends. But right this moment, it's just with Connie. So I hope you all have had a good holiday weekend and you're back into it. It's a busy time, but Bible study is so important. And I learn something every single time I study. So I had to share, even though today's been, there's been a lot going on today. But if we can't take time to read the Bible, then what are we doing this whole thing for, right? Without that, we're nothing anyway. So I'm taking time to do a short Bible study, and I'm glad that I am. September, our theme is animals in the Bible. Animals in the Bible. And the first animal we're beginning with is the donkey. And it just seemed, appropriate with political season and whatnot, um, but I immediately thought of a scripture that has always been a favorite of mine, a story in the Bible. And then it went from there because then I was like, oh, but you know what? And then there's another. So there are multiple stories about donkeys in the Bible. And we're going to read a few of them tonight. The first one is in Numbers chapter 22. Numbers 22. And we've studied this before. In Bible study for different reasons, not because we were studying donkeys. This time we're studying because we're studying donkeys, but we've talked about Balaam and his donkey before, because this story honestly just cracks me up. So basically, you have to know what's going on in earlier in the verses, but um, they Balaam has a place to go. Well, let's start from there. Let's start from there. Let's see, where do I start? Where do I start? So Balak has summoned Balaam. So let's start at verse 7. Put on my glasses because these words are swimming around. The elders of Moab and Midian left, taking with them the fee for divination. When they came to Balaam, they told him what Balak had said. Spend the night here, Balaam said to them, and I will report back to you with the answer the Lord gives me. So the Moabite officials stayed with him. God came to Balaam and asked, who are these men with you? Balaam said to God, Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent me this message. A people that has come out of Egypt covers the face of the land. Now come and put a curse on them for me. Perhaps then I will be able to fight them and drive them away. But God said to Balaam, do not go with them. You must not put a curse on those people because they are blessed. The next morning, Balaam got up and said to Balak's officials, go back to your own country, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you. So the Moabite officials returned to Balak and said, Balaam refused to come with us. Then Balak sent other officials, more numerous and more distinguished than the first. They came to Balaam and said, this is what Balak, son of Zippor, says. Do not let anything keep you from coming to me, because I will reward you handsomely and do whatever you say. Come and put a curse on these people for me. But look at verse 18. But Balaam answered them, even if Balak gave me all the silver and gold in his palace, I could not do anything, great or small, to go beyond the command of the Lord my God. And I'll spend the night here so that I can find out what else the Lord will tell me. That night, God came to Balaam and said, since these men have come to summon you, go with them, but do only what I tell you. Now we get to the story. So my sister Spring, as you all saw, has joined us now. So I've got, Connie and friends. Connie, it's not just me. And Spring, we're talking about animals in the Bible, and tonight we're studying about the donkey. So we're getting ready to read about Balaam and his donkey. So go to verse 21. This is Numbers chapter 22. And now we're at verse 21. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the Moabite officials. But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, it turned off the road into a field. Balaam beat it to get it back on the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path through the vineyards with walls on both sides. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it pressed close to the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it. So he beat the donkey again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam, and he was angry and beat it with his staff. Then we got a miracle going on here, y'all. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey. See, I stop there. The donkey asks this question, and Balaam just answers. There's a whole story there. Like, what happens? He doesn't say, "How are you talking?" His servants who can hear him, they're not freaking out because the donkey is talking. What's most important to me too, it's not just that he opened his mouth so he could speak. Clearly, the donkey had a brain. The donkey can see in the spirit realm. The donkey, knows sentence structure. First time talking, knows how to ask a question. I got questions, but this is what happens. So, um, Balaam answered in verse 29. Balaam answered the donkey, "You have made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." Seriously, it's a talking donkey. Seriously? The donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden to this day? Have I been in the habit of doing this to you?" Like, just think of the reasoning skills in this donkey's mind. Like, these are philosophical questions. He's trying to get him to think back. Have I ever done this before? Like that. He's not just asking basic questions of, "Master, there's something in the road." Like, it's not very basic. These are well thought out questions. So he says, "Have I been in the habit of doing this to you?" "No," he said. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn. So he bowed low and fell face down. The angel of the Lord asked him, "Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times?" "I have come here to oppose you before your path is a reckless one before me." Oh, "I've come here to oppose you because your path is a reckless one before me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If it had not turned away, I would certainly have killed you by now, but I would have spared it. I'd have killed you and left the donkey." Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned. I did not realize you were standing in the road to oppose me. Now, if you are displeased, I will go back." Then the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, "Go with the men, but speak only what I tell you." So Balaam went with Balak's officials. All right, I'm going to stop there because we're just talking about the donkey right now. We're not going when he got there. If you want to read more, Numbers 22. So we stopped at verse 35. We started at verse 9. Oh, no, at verse 7. We started at verse 7 and went through verse 35. So that's Balaam and his donkey. It's one of my favorite stories because the donkey has a little bit of sarcasm in there. It's just he's smart and he's not freaking out that the donkey is talking. And I have questions. So we're going to talk about another story about a donkey, and it's not the full donkey this time. Go to Judges 15. And this is Samson. Samson was a hot mess, to be honest with you. I mean, he's, strong and all things and all of that. Um, but the Philistines, which, was messy. He shouldn't have been messing around with the Philistines anyway. We studied that as well in another Bible study where who he chose to marry was not the right person to marry. And she immediately set him up and he got mad at her. So when you look at the start of chapter 15, look at what it says. Later on, at the time of wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat and went to visit his wife. He said, I'm going to my wife's room, but her father would not let him go in. I was so sure you hated her, he said, that I gave her to your companion. Isn't her younger sister more attractive? Take her instead. Samson said to them, this time I have a right to get even with the Philistines. I will really harm them. So he went out and caught 300 foxes and tied them tail to tail in pairs. He then fastened a torch to every pair of tails, lit the torches, and let the foxes loose in the standing grain of the Philistines. He burned up the shocks and standing grain together with the vineyards and olive groves. When the Philistines asked, who did this? They were told, Samson, the Timnite son-in-law, because his wife was given to his companion. So the Philistines went up and burned her and her father to death. Messy. Samson said to them, since you've acted like this, I swear that I won't stop until I get my revenge on you. He attacked them viciously and slaughtered many of them. Then he went down and stayed in a cave in the rock of Edom, Etam. The Philistines went up and camped in Judah, spreading out near Lehi. The people of Judah asked, why have you come to fight us? We have come to take Samson prisoner, they answered, to do to him as he did to us. Then 3,000 men from Judah went down to the cave in the rock of Etam and said to Samson, don't you realize that the Philistines are rulers over us? What have you done to us? He answered, I merely did to them what they did to me. He's so convinced, justified in his wrongness. They said to him, well, we've come to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines. Like, that's a you problem. That's not us problem. That's a you problem. Samson said, swear to me that you won't kill me yourselves. Agreed, they answered. We will only tie you up and hand you over to them. We will not kill you. So they bound him with 2 new ropes and led him up from the rock. As he approached Lehi, the Philistines came toward him shouting. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. The ropes on his arms became like charred flax, and the bindings dropped from his hands. Here's a donkey. Finding a fresh jawbone of a donkey, he grabbed it and struck down 1,000 men. Then Samson said, with a donkey's jawbone, I have made monkeys of them. And the way it reads in King James, it says, and Samson said, with the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps. With the jaw of an ass have I slain 1,000 men. So an ass is another name for a donkey. So he killed them with a donkey's jawbone. And then it says, when he was finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone. And the place was called Ramoth or Rameth Lehi, which means Jawbone Hill. Is Jawbone Hill. So that was 15, Judges 15, verses 1 through 17, when they named the hill Jawbone Hill after the jawbone of a donkey. Then we have one verse in Zechariah to read, and then I need to read something out of Matthew. So go to Zechariah 9, and we're going to read verse 9. And the reason I'm reading this verse is because it's a prophecy of things to come. Verse 9 says, rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. That is Zechariah 9:9. And then when you go to Matthew chapter 21, you look at verses 1 through 11, and this is Jesus doing exactly what it said in Zechariah 9:9. Matthew 21, 1 through 9, 1 through 11. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, say that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. Say to daughter Zion, see, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey and on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And it references Zechariah 9:9. Verse 6, the disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest heaven." When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." So those are the scriptures I'm reading about a donkey. I was doing some study about donkeys and politics because, you know, donkey is the mascot or the image for the Democratic Party. And that started, I read about it long ago. It actually started in from a guy, he was a visual artist. He was an artist, and his name was Nast, Nast. And he depicted the Democratic Party as a donkey and the Republican Party as a elephant. And when you look it up, this is according to CNN.com. Historians have asserted that Nast, who grew up in New York City in the 1840s and 50s, that's how long ago the donkey has been associated with Democratic Party, was ferociously bullied as a child. I had to read this because y'all know I'm all about the anti-bullying. Indeed, the two themes that run through his career are his sneering disdain for bullies of all shapes and sizes and his compassion for their victims. So, anyway, he did political cartoons, Thomas Nast, N-A-S-T, and they said that it's not proven, but some people think that the word nasty comes from Thomas Nast, N-A-S-T, from his name. But 1879, I mean, hundreds of over 100 years, the donkey got affiliated with, and neither was supposed to be good, the donkey nor the elephant. It wasn't a compliment. It was, you know, it was not a compliment, but it's just interesting in our political season, and knowing that the donkey is just accepted as the elephant is for Republicans. And so it's interesting. So Thomas Nast, in case people ever ask you, it's a piece of trivia that you can know. The donkey being used as the image for the Democratic Party came from Thomas Nast back in the 1800s. So the last thing I'll say about the donkey is there are lots of scriptures that mention, you know, tie up your donkey, tie up, you know, those kind of, there's just basic mentions. But the only one that really felt relevant enough to mention, get an honorable mention, is Genesis 22:3. Genesis 22, verse 3. And that's when Abraham was getting ready to sacrifice Isaac before the Lord stopped him. And he saddled up his donkey and took Isaac to go be sacrificed. And so that was another mention of having a donkey. So that's animals in the Bible is our theme for September. We started with the donkey, and we talked about Balaam's donkey, who started talking. We talked about Samson using the jawbone of a donkey to whoop up on the Philistines. And then we talked about the prophecy of Jesus riding in on a donkey and then seeing Jesus ride in on a donkey in Zechariah and then Matthew. So I hope that was a blessing to you. I'm going to bring my sister on screen and see what she has to say. Hello, sister.
No, I'm so glad I joined tonight. I was headed somewhere else, and something said, "You miss Bible studies. Well, just sit this one out and just stay home and join your sister's Bible study." So I'm glad I was able to come on. That's interesting. I didn't know that animals were the theme for the month of September. So I came on. I'm like, why is she talking about a donkey? But yeah, so that's very cool. I had you don't hear everything about Samson, not a lot, not unless you're studying and reading it. And so I was what caught my eye. I actually had to go back and look at it because they said 3,000, that they came with 3,000 men just to come and get him. I knew he was like super, but I'm like, three, that's a lot of people, 3,000. And then it says he killed 1,000, but that was a different thousand. So the 3,000 were the people where he lived, just coming, like his neighbors, his towns. All the men got together and said, he gotta go turn himself in, because otherwise they're gonna bring the plague down on us. So we gotta go turn him in. And he was like, okay, just as long as y'all not trying to kill me, let me go before them. And then God gave him the strength to, he killed 1,000 people, and then they just left him alone. I read further that said he ruled for 20 years after that. He became the ruler. So yeah, so that was all very interesting. But I know about the talking donkey, but it's just too funny that he didn't say, like, oh my, what are you doing talking? Why are you talking?
Oh,
you know he just started beating on him and stuff. We don't know what backstory, or if something like this had happened before or whatever. And then the way God dealt with him about that, he was like, basically, like, he was telling him, if it wasn't for the donkey, you'd be dead. Because the donkey realized what was going on. The donkey, whose
right.
presence he was in, he knew to turn around. And you're beating him
Yep.
because you all big and bad, and you gonna go, you know, and
Right.
then the Holy
I'd have killed you and left him.
Yeah, because the spirit was upon the donkey. The donkey knew not to go. The donkey was like, we ain't supposed to go over there. We're not supposed to go over there. So they kept stopping, you know. So that's interesting. It's interesting. It's something
Yeah.
powerful about, as much as we make fun about what the donkey is, the donkey being stubborn, known as being stubborn. I mean, that's the biggest trait, and and being a fool, and that's how I got connected, like with that political party even, and and that God could take and use them basically for good, and could just,
Right.
yeah, just totally turn that around. That Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So
Yeah. And I had just recently read the book of Matthew. So I knew, of course, I mean, we always know about Jesus riding it on a donkey, but
mhm.
when I started praying, like, okay, so because I always have to look it up. I didn't know what September's theme was either. I was like, so what's September? I'm like, animals. Huh. Okay, what do you want us to read about? And it was donkey immediately came to mind. I'm like, oh, we get to read about Balaam's donkey. And then God was like, that's not the only donkey. And I'm like, oh yeah, because I remembered about Samson and I had just read about Jesus. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, so donkeys. And then when I was looking at all the scriptures, there were like I said, a bunch of mentions, but the one that stood out also was about Abraham and Isaac, that he saddled his donkey so he could sacrifice Isaac before God. Said, don't do it. I got a ram. I'll put a ram in the bush for you. Don't do it.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, well, So hopefully, Facebook, I'm hoping that you learned some new things about donkeys and also about Thomas Nast, and you now know how that happened to be, that we're sharing some relevant information for you, some scripture, as well as some political, current events and historic events and things like that. So I pray that tonight's Bible study was a blessing to all of you. And thank you, my sister Spring, for being here. I was gonna power through all by myself because I know some folks are at events right now. So people who are normally on as well, I know she's at an event specifically. So anyway, so I will say farewell, Facebook. I'll see you next week. Bye, Facebook.